Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. This is the NTP and TikTok working group meetings combined. First of all, I want to double check remote audio. You should be able to hear us. So speak up if you can't. And we have Harlan and Christoph remotely. Richard. Yakov. Oh, excellent. Hey, Rich, you set the topic to the Jabber room to go to the TikTok room. I actually told them to go to the NTP room. And right now it's just you and me and TikTok, and everybody else is in NTP. So, all right. So this is the new Notewell. For those of you, so everybody is aware, this is the ITF meeting. The Notewell applies. There is actually an updated RFC that's referenced here. RFC 8179. So the IPR rules have been updated. There was a recent blog post, I think it's like around the 13th or 14th of July on the IETF blog that talks about the updated RFC. There are some tweaks to the rules, but basically they are the same. What you say, what you send on the mailing lists, and documents are considered contributions. If you have any questions, the only reason why I'm spending a little bit more time on this than usual is the underlying RFC has actually changed. So for those of you who, everybody should care about that. I was getting ready to say for those of you who care, but everybody cares about this, and so everybody should be aware that it has changed. Yes, we have logs. We all care about this, and it has changed. All right, so moving on, we're all aware of the Notewell. So the agenda for today, administrative and agenda bashing. We have a minute taker, we have a Jabber scribe. Thanks to both of you very much. I do believe that this is quite possibly a record for the NTP working group where we have not stood at the front and begged for both of those positions as the meeting is starting. So, which is progress. The agenda for today, we'll do NTP first, and then we will do the TikTok stuff. We'll go over the working group status. We'll talk about the network time security, all of those lists of documents. So I didn't prepare a slide for the NTP working group status. The only thing I really wanted, basically if it's a current work item or something we've been discussing for a while and it is not represented somehow on the agenda somewhere else, then I put it here. And so the only thing that's really here is the draft IETF NTP Mode 6 commands. I know that Brian Haberman, who is the author of that document, is over in the deprived meeting, so he's not here. He incorporated all the comments that were received from the last set of comments, and it's his belief that this document is ready to go to working group last call. Does anybody have any reason why they don't believe that should be the case? And as a reminder to folks that are new to this is actually fixing an omission from the NTP, the current versions of the NTP specs where this got actually left out, and so now it's been added back in. It's been one of those little bits of administrative that we haven't taken care of. So no questions, comments on Mode 6 messages? Okay. So the next item on the agenda is the workhorse of this working group at the moment, the network time security. Daniel?
So I haven't bothered with slides because the update on this is fairly straightforward. I believe the document is ready to go to last call at any time. Outstanding issues, as far as I'm aware, are a few people have contacted me with proofreads and identified some typos. I need to go through those and also make sure they're listed in the contributor section. And I think there was an outstanding question from the interim about what we want the final title of this document to be. I don't think these questions are both fairly trivial. They should not be blockers for last call. I think we're ready at any time.
Okay. Is there any questions for Daniel about this document? How many people in here have had a chance to read the updated draft? I think that's 4 of us. I think there's a few more of these that need to read it. Oh, there we go, 5. Well, you don't. Sharon's not, well, oh my goodness, yeah, it's ridiculous early time for Sharon, so she's definitely. All right, so, oh, Harlan's in the queue. We haven't pushed the red button, sorry. Clearly I needed my second cup of tea. Go ahead, Harlan.
Hi there. Dave Mills, I just sent this to the chat area, has a report and comments about the follow-on to AutoKey that includes network time security. And with respect to network time security, he's particularly concerned about the lack of symmetric mode coverage. I've got a copy of his paper that's in the queue to the mailing list, and it should address everything he's talking about.
All right. As I understand it, we're having some mailing list issues right now, so I haven't had the opportunity to see the comments, but I look forward to them.
Yes, yes, we're working on that, and sorry about that.
Okay. So, Harlan, just one quick question. I guess it hasn't changed much with respect to symmetric mode from the last revision to this revision, but do you know if Dave's comments are based on the current revision or the previous revision?
My understanding is they're based on the current revision, and in particular, he said his belief is that DTLS will not work with symmetric mode. Dieter may have a copy of this paper since I sent it to him directly.
All right, so Dieter has it, but he hasn't had the time to read it yet, so.
No worries.
Okay, well, we will be, I'm not hearing from that any reason why we can't go ahead and initiate the working group last call, and this would be part of the discussion that we could have during the working group last call.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, well, with that, we will move to working group last call. I think what I would like to do once we fix the tiny little mailing list problem is go ahead and start that this week. And then I think maybe is 3 weeks too short or too long? 3 weeks?
Yeah, I think 3 weeks is a good starting point. If Dr. Mills has indeed identified some serious problem in symmetric mode, then we would probably have to extend it. But yeah, I think we should 3 weeks should be fine for now.
Okay. All right. Harlan, do you have any issue with the 3-week working group last call starting in a few days?
As long as we can get the mailing list going soon, no.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So 3 weeks starting from the day of mailing list availability, I guess.
Yes, we should move the list, and that's. I had kind of hoped that this wouldn't become a discussion topic. Yes. Yes, we need to move the mailing list. It's been sort of one of these things that when it's working, it doesn't matter. And when it's not working, Harlan, I don't think he's actually speaking at this point. I'm kicking him out of the queue and get back in. All right. So yes, at this point, thank you very much, Daniel, and the folks. This has been a lot of work, and we will send it to working group last call and and see where we end up. Next is Anshal.
Yeah, I don't have any slides, but there are a couple of updates to the NTP back draft. And there were a couple of questions raised during the last discussion. So first was the algorithm agility, and we added, NTP has an inbuilt algorithm agility, support for algorithm agility. There is this file called ntp.keys file, which allows for the specification of the key identifier and the associated key, as well as we can also mention the algorithm used, which we want to use for the symmetric crypto for NTP packets. Currently, there is only support for MD5, but since we are proposing this new AES CMAC algorithm, I think we can incorporate it in that ntp.keys file. So NTP. So the point is that there is it allows for the transition from one algorithm to another. So that should not be a problem. I've addressed that in the draft. And the second issue was to have a test vectors section. Since we referred to RFC 4493 for AES CMAC implementation, it contains the test vectors for AES CMAC itself, and we also checked our implementation using the same vectors. The draft itself uses the vectors from NIST CMAC document, and I think we don't need new test vectors, so I've added the new test vectors referring to that draft. I think that's it. If anyone has any other questions.
Any questions? So this is another document. At our last interim, we talked about moving this to working group last call as soon as we got an update to it.
Mm-hmm.
This is a really short document. I don't see any reason why we can't do the working group last call in parallel with the NTS document. So I would like to start it this week. And based on the discussions at the last meeting, I don't see any reason not to do that. Okay. Excellent. Client minimization. Daniel? Data minimization.
Right. So there have been no substantive changes, or I'm not sure any at all, since the last interim. There is an issue of a bit of drama. Some individuals who are not present and who do not ordinarily participate with the IETF have been making some demands and accusations surrounding this draft, and been abusive to the point that I believe I can no longer treat the surrounding issues impartially. Therefore, I have requested the chairs to appoint an editor for this document who can make a fair decision on those issues.
Right. So, so we have talked about this offline. I have solicited at least one potential editor. Anybody else who, if there's any volunteers who really want to do this, that would be great. Otherwise, I will proceed with arm twisting to get an editor. So, yes. Oh, sorry, you have to go to the mic. Oh, I'm sorry, Harlan. I didn't see you again. Okay, go ahead, Anshal.
What is it? Hi, Anshul from Boston University. What does it entail to have a new RFC editor? Like, what does it mean to have a new RFC
it's
editor?
just a new.
Yeah, it's just somebody that the working group will be assigning change control for the document.
The authors will remain listed as, so currently there's two authors on that document, you and Daniel. So my intention would be to have a third person that would be the editor of the document, and then the authors would stay as authors, unless you specifically want to be removed as an author and moved to the acknowledgement section. But I think what you're looking for is somebody else to arbitrate the comments that you're getting.
Yes.
So Rashkrishnan, so I think the chair could be the person who arbitrates. Like, I don't necessarily see like a new editor being required.
Okay, so you're thinking we
So
can,
if like there's something, you do it, and like we'll take care of it. Like, I don't think you necessarily need to stand down, because your job as editor is to do whatever the working group wants you to do. So, and I think like I'll let the chairs decide like what's okay, right? So if you want to do it, like if you want to step aside, if it's difficult, I don't know exactly what happened. So like so if you want to share with me, we can actually talk about it. And I don't think it's acceptable that like this kind of personal stuff happens, and especially on IETF stuff. So I don't know like how this happened, but if it's an IETF activity, I don't like this kind of things happening. So, and I'm really fine with like you guys deciding
with
like,
us just deciding and,
yeah.
and being.
So you just like send like just document everything on the mailing list, saying, okay, this is like we looked at these two things, this is what we decided. Daniel, can you make this change? That's it.
Okay. Well, perhaps we can talk about it a little bit more.
Okay.
Harlan, let me give
Hi
you
there.
a chance to speak.
Dave had separate comments about this that go along the lines of he wonders why the document is at all necessary, because it looks like the document basically is a re-implementation of SNTP. And since everything data minimization does can be done with SMTP, Dave wonders why we even need it. And as a side issue, I think there may be an error in the minimization document where it talks about how the received timestamp for one is sent back, and that's data leakage. But that only gets done in symmetric mode. That doesn't happen in client server mode, to my knowledge. So the only thing we're dealing with is using a nonce for the only thing we're doing is using a nonce for the origin timestamp, and that's something that's already permitted with the SNTP spec.
Yeah. So I will go back through the SNTP spec carefully and see if the only thing I've indicated as a must in the document is already covered. If that's the case, then we can change Then we can change its intended status from standards track to informational. I think the document needs to be published regardless, just to have a statement of the security and privacy considerations surrounding these choices.
Okay.
You look tempted, Anshal. You don't want to say anything.
Yeah, I also wanted to say the same, because I think the document is necessary because it doesn't state the reason why we are doing this thing, like the privacy issues that are involved. I don't think any documentation in SNTP states that the reasoning behind why we have that.
Okay. So my assessment of this conversation is that there's no reason why these are also not comments that could be addressed during working group last call. Right, Harlan?
Sure.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Next, I'll have to switch the order of that. Huh? Actually, that should have been moved down to there. So I'm doing a dynamic agenda bash because I thought I fixed this. I'm going to move the NTP ref ID discussion down with the EF discussion at the bottom. I wanted to cover all of the things that we had updates from the last meeting first, and then we'll get to the stuff that is still sort of outstanding. BCP.
I will give the update in behalf of Dennis. These are the changes which have been. Oh no, sorry. Okay. These are the topics that are changed after the last working group last call. That are basically changes to the language regarding the number of time sources and the behavior of that, changes to the language regarding any cars. So AutoKey section has been recrafted, and also there is a pointer to the new feature of the NTP.key file. Sorry, that's an error in the slide. That has also been a discussion on the KOD packets, and there has been some clarification introduced and some small editorial changes. So all in all, Dennis and Harlan are believing that the draft is mature enough to go to the working to the next step.
Right. So, so as far as so this document has gone through working group last call. We've addressed all the comments from the working group last call, and we have somebody. Mike, go ahead.
From Harlan, the new fourth column is in NTP.keys. Yeah, it's the slide's wrong. Okay. Also Chicago.
Okay, so at this point, I believe this document is ready to send to the ISG. I don't see any reason not to do it. So that is what we plan to do next, unless somebody opposes it. Well, actually, I guess if you opposed it, you should have spoken up during the working group last call. So this document will be proceeding to the ISG shortly. Yang. That's 1588, not the NTP. Right, so they're not here. So there is an update to the, we did a call for adoption. We adopted the document. It has been republished. So we do have a Yang data model for NTP that is published. The authors of that are not here this week. So what I would like to do is to encourage people to take a quick look at it. Probably in the time frame of our next virtual meeting, we will discuss moving that to a working group last call. Wait, Harlan.
Hi there. I have a slight concern that no one has implemented it yet, but from what I'm seeing, it shouldn't be too difficult. I don't know. We'll learn doing it. You know, there may be problems, but at least overall, I don't think it'll be difficult to implement.
Yeah, I'm not sure if the authors are implementing it or not. It could be that they have.
I've spoken with them and they aren't planning on it. And the only other side bit I will say there is Dennis Riley and I were chatting about things, and he commented on how one of the things he's noticing in the PTP meetings is they're specifying things in the standard before they're implemented, and then they get to go back and fix them when they realize they don't work. And let's just say we generally don't have that problem because we implement standard stuff after we're sure everything's polished and running.
Yeah, we don't. Anyway, that's a fair point. I think the difference between the 1588 stuff and the NTP Yang model is that the NTP Yang model is based on the NTP NIB, which is based on 20 years of work. So
Yes.
I think there's a lot less risk with this particular document than there would be with the 1588 specification, where they're inventing a lot of additional new stuff. So
I agree. There's still some risk though, but it's minimal.
there is some. This is an excellent. Well, I better not say that. All right. So, given the results of the working group last call, I intend to send this to the ISG. So, all right. So next on the agenda, Tal, did you want to talk about the work you've been doing on timestamps? You're not taking notes.
This is not the first slide.
No, I don't. Go to his top of the slides.
Great. So my name is Tal Mizrahi. I'm from Marvell, and this draft is joint work with Joachim and Al, and it's about guidelines for defining packet timestamp format. And actually, this was submitted to the Internet Area Working Group, and this is presented here, FYI, because we believe this community may be interested in this and may have some valuable feedback. Next, please. Okay, so in general, timestamps are widely used in the RFC series, and we distinguish between two types of timestamp: text-based timestamps and packet timestamps. So on the left, we see an example of a text-based timestamp. So we see in netconf RPC. And on the right, we see an example of a packet timestamp. This is the NTP packet format. So text-based timestamps are intended to be human-friendly, user-friendly. And packet timestamps are intended to have a fixed length because they need to fit into a packet header. So this is the main difference between the two. Next slide, please. So like I said, text-based timestamps are very common in many documents. And we see a few examples here, not an exhaustive list of examples, but related to netconf, Yang, various RFCs related to JSON and XML. And text-based timestamps are defined in RFC 3339. Packet timestamps are also very common. Next slide, please. So we can see that packet timestamps are used in a lot of different RFCs, also in a lot of internet drafts which are currently in progress. So obviously a lot of network protocols require packet timestamps. The problem that we're trying to address here is that there's no common timestamp format for packet timestamps, as opposed to text-based timestamps. And furthermore, in many RFCs and internet drafts, a new packet timestamp format is defined, and the way timestamps are defined are not necessarily in a standard way. That is, they're defined in different way, not necessarily clear. A lot of times there's some ambiguity about the way the format is defined. Next slide, please. So the goal of this draft is twofold, actually. First of all, to define a small set of recommended timestamp formats. And the second is to specify guidelines regarding how to define a new timestamp format. Next slide, please. So this is the set of recommended timestamp formats that are currently defined in this draft. So we have two formats which are based on the NTP timestamp. We have the 64-bit NTP timestamp and the 32-bit timestamp. And then on the right, we see a PTP-based format. It's actually a concatenated 64-bit timestamp. So the idea is that generally, if you're defining a network protocol that will typically work on a PC or on a server, then you will typically want to integrate that with NTP. So you'll probably want to use an NTP-based timestamp format. And if you're defining a network protocol that will typically work on a hardware device, which sometimes uses PTP, then you may want to use the PTP-based timestamp format. So we expect that in most cases, one of these timestamp formats should fit your requirements. However, obviously not always. So in some cases, none of these is going to fit your requirements in terms of number of bits or in terms of granularity. In these cases, you want to define a new timestamp format. So next slide, please. So if you do need to define a new timestamp format, we're recommending to use this template. Okay, these are basically the properties that need to be well defined in order to implement the timestamp correctly. So first of all, you need to define the field format, that is the number of bits in the units. And if there are a few subfields, you should define these for each of the subfields. And you also need to define the epoch, that is the point of reference, for example, the 1st of January 1970. any considerations related to wraparound, when the timestamp is going to wrap around in 2036 or whatever. And also any considerations related to synchronization, whether we're requiring all the endpoints that are using this timestamp to be synchronized or not. Next slide, please. Another aspect which is discussed in this draft is an optional control field. So in some cases, if you're using a timestamp, you need some control information regarding the timestamp. So, for example, this control information can include what the timestamp format is, its precision or resolution, the epoch, the era, and we're actually looking for feedback and more ideas of what kind of information you would expect to see in this control field. So any feedback about this would be welcome. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is the first draft. We've submitted it in the last month or so. We're looking for any feedback you may have, and especially we'd like to collect requirements about the control field, like I said. We're also looking for feedback about what is the right place to discuss this document, because like I said, we did submit this to the Internet Area Working Group, but obviously this draft may be relevant for different working groups in different areas. So any opinions you may have about what is the right place to discuss this draft are also welcome.
Greg Mirsky, ZT. Well, first, thank you for taking on it, because I think that this work was a long time due. And yes, I think that there are many groups who will be interested. I recall that there was a discussion of considering adding timestamp formats to routing types data model. So you might consider that. I know that they're trying to wrap this document, but there might be some, this or some other work. So
Okay.
Working with them, talking with them, and contributing might be just to create something that represents timestamps, NTP, PTP. Couple comments. So you refer to PTP 1588 concatenated format.
Right.
I think that more recent is 1588 V2, and 64 bits is referred as a truncated.
Okay.
And another thing is that, yes, we see it in many protocols that try to serve both purposes, NTP and PTP, especially in delay measurement. So they do have identifier what type of format. So if you can include it into your format and then have it in a data model as well. Because
Right.
one of the examples will be 6374, which allows you
Right.
that. And now in TWAMP, we
Right.
do have support collection of the timestamp and either format, NTP or PTP. And we use V2 truncated format as a 6374 as well.
Right, that's a good point. So that was one of the reasons we discussed the control field here. Because, for example, in RFC 6374, there's a dedicated field which specifies whether you use the PTP-based or the NTP-based timestamp. So that's just one subfield of the control field, but we tried to generalize it and to possibly include more information that may be relevant to the timestamp.
Right, but in data model, when we talk about data model,
Right.
we don't have to really think about where it goes in a format, but we just need to know what data representative.
I see. Okay. Thanks.
Daniel Franca, Akamai. So my first snarky comment about this is we have 17 compatible standards, so let's create one more that'll solve everything. My more sincere input is that I think we actually do have a valuable opportunity here, which is to fix something that virtually every system since the dawn of computers has gotten wrong. And that is that we're doing binary UTC timestamps improperly, in that we are unable to unambiguously represent the time during leap seconds. The way to fix that is that giving seconds and fractions is not sufficient. We should be giving days, seconds, and fractions, where the second will normally be less than 86,400, except during a leap second, in which case it will be equal to 86,400.
I relaying for Yakov. One, the place for doing this is TikTok. And two, like Daniel said, we need to specify leap seconds are used or not. And if fractional seconds or full milli or micro or nano also needs to be spec.
Okay, thanks.
Suresh Krishnan, AD Hat. I think this is the right working group for this, not Interior, for sure. Like it doesn't matter like who's going to end up using this. And the way I think about it is like I look for where I can get maximum review for this. Okay, so if you put this in Interior, like I'm going to come to like NTP and TikTok for review anyway. Okay, so it does not make sense to take it anywhere else. And I'll make sure like everybody gets to know about this in all the areas, right? Like we're going to do an IETF last call, and I can talk to my co-ADs and say like, okay, guys, like this is new timestamp format, but I really want that to happen here.
You mean in TikTok?
In NTP, TikTok, like wherever like Karen wants to take it up, right? Like, but I want somebody with like time knowledge to take a look at this, like not somebody in Interior, because like outside here is just users of this, right? Like, so I want somebody who has the understanding of all this stuff to actually review it. So I really think it should be in NTP or TikTok.
Okay, thanks.
I also have a question, this Dieter. From the metrology point of view, it would be fine to have information about the uncertainty of the timestamp. Can this be introduced in the control field, for example?
Right, so this could be one of the control fields. So we listed precision here. So precision is kind of a word that can mean different things. Okay, uncertainty, that's a valid point. Yeah.
Joachim Fabini, so I'm one of the co-authors. So basically, exactly this was one of the reasons for including the control field also for application layer application. So we have right now in the IEEE protocol, in the synchrophaser measurement unit protocol field, in the C37-118 standard, we have exactly this. So we have synchronization requirement of 1 microsecond, and PMUs are able to include this information, how accurately they are synchronized to UTC into such a control field, and something similar we plan to introduce also here.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, there's just one more quick thing from Harlan. Oh, our thing. Oh, Harlan. So Harlan, you need to get back in the queue, because I don't think I hit the button, but yeah, he dropped out of the queue. Okay, that's good. So Yakov actually had a couple more. Oh, okay. So anyway, Yakov also questioned as to whether anyone is going to try to convert this to local time zones. And he also says it may be nice to have an indicator as to the master clock. So suffice it to say, there are lots of suggestions. Harlan's back.
Yeah,
All right, Harlan.
Hi. You're covering a bunch of stuff and going down a road that we've already gone, we as in Network Time Foundation have already gone down with this general timestamp API. So we're covering the issues of pretty much everything that's been brought up and a bunch that people haven't thought of yet. So we've got stuff to start with and work with, and we've been looking for a place to talk about this and just haven't found anywhere. It looks like we're colliding, and that would be a great thing to merge.
Okay, makes sense. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Anything else on the timestamp formats? All right. So back to the agenda. Harlan, I'm kicking you out again. So this actually brings me, Sharon's timing is perfect. So we moved item number 6, the ref ID updates and the EF discussion down. I know that we don't have any updated drafts yet, so this is just a discussion about where we want to head with those documents. And my apologies, I didn't catch you in advance to ask you about it. And Harlan's online. So between the two of you, I just wondered, you want to talk to Harlan first? Okay. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that'd be perfect. There's a whole set of documents out there, and there's the results of the interim meeting. And because we've been so focused on the time and not on the time, on the security work, it just sort of, I think we are trying to wrap up the security stuff, and then we'll get to the other pieces. All right, at that point, that brings us to the NTP agenda. Oh, Harlan.
Oh, do we want to talk about the ref ID updates and the extension field drafts now, or is that later still?
Sharon indicated that she would like to talk about it after she's talked to you. So why don't the two of you get together and coordinate, and we can move it to the next virtual meeting that we have, if that's okay.
That's fine with me. For whatever it's worth, nothing has changed from all the documents I've got pretty much are as they are. There's a reasonable chance I'm going to add another bit into the extended information extension field proposal, but I'll know more about that within the next week or so.
Okay. If you review the notes from the virtual meeting we had, I don't know, a month or two ago, there was some next steps that we were going to take. I believe Dietra emailed you yesterday about those. So I'd like to take this offline, and then, I mean, we have plenty to do right now in the next month or so to get all the security stuff working group last called. So, all right. Anything else, Harlan? Okay. So that brings me to the end of the NTP working group portion of this agenda. Are there any questions, comments related to that? Nope. I do think, and this is pretty short, it was only 45 minutes, but I think we've made a lot of progress over the last 4 or 5 months. I think we've got some stuff that's really close to going out the door, which is very exciting. So the TikTok agenda, this one will be pretty short. We have the TikTok working group status, and then we have the Yang model. If we go to the next slide, I did actually prep a TikTok working group status slide. And part of the reason why I went ahead and put this slide together was I'm very excited to announce that we actually got the PTP MIB published. Huge thanks to Suresh, because I basically washed my hands of it and said, please go solve this. And he did. So, oh yeah, there she is. Hi. So, so we are, so that has now been published, and that's very exciting. The next thing I wanted to give a quick mention on is the PTP Enterprise Profile. We are awaiting an author update on that, and I haven't pushed too hard on this because I know right now the 1588 group is deep into the working on the resolution of working group ballot comments for the first, we did a first working group ballot for the update to 1588, and that has, answering the results of that has pretty much consumed that working group. So I think, again, I'm really sort of interested in wrapping up some of the time security work, so I haven't pushed too hard on this to give the 1588 folks a bit of a breath. So having said that, we do have an update to the Yang data model for 1588 v2.
Hi, good morning. This is Ryan from Huawei. We have updated the Yang model to the 5th version. So the tree is almost fixed, but for this version, we added a new attribute that's underlying interface. These attributes can help the user to retrieve the topology or the path of the whole PTP transport passes. So it will help the monitoring and diagnosis of any problems on the route. So the next slide. The summary of this version, we added a new section. This section discusses why we use a single tree hierarchy in the first place. The next, please. The reason we use this kind of tree module paradigm, since the original information model of the 1588 version 2 categorized the member into 3 classes. One is configurable, the second is dynamic, and the last is static. Since some of these member can also change the status, for example, the port state in the port DS dataset can be configurable or be dynamic. That is read-only, depending on the scenarios or implementations of this PDP device. So a combined tree is quite a good representation of this behavior. So during the last HV 1588 meeting, one of the co-authors of the Young module contacted with the NMDA author Robert Wilton, that he confirmed that this module is actually consistent with up-to-date NMDA command tree. So that's fortunate for us. The current status in the industry, quite a few vendors have shown their interest to demo or implement the Young module. More vendors are still waiting for the publication so that they can be without any changes to the devices. So the publication will add the momentum of its influence. Just in the last month, the ITOT Study Group 15 also approved a new work group item that's on the synchronization management. It's targeted to develop the transport equipment information model for synchronization management. Some people have raised the points that it's best to be consistent with the 1588 Young module to avoid any duplication work there. So that's another thing happened recently. The last slide. So this version has been there for quite some time. We'd like to see more feedback if there is any concerns or new improvements needed. And lastly, we'd like to hold whether it's ready for the work group last call. Thank you.
Okay. So this document, I believe, to be ready for working group last call. Do we have any concerns about that? the one thing that I will be doing is, one of the co-authors on this is one of the members of the 1588 working group, but I will also inform them that we are doing this working group last call. So, does anybody? I don't know how much overlap. And this is a very small working group, very small community. So I don't like to do too many working group last calls at the same time. Perhaps if we. Oh, Suresh is going to the mic to provide AD guidance.
So slightly different topic, Suresh Krishnan. So we talked about this in Berlin, right? Like to see like what's going to end up with this. Like, are we going to go for an RFC or not? You made that decision that it's going to proceed to an RFC, because like we are wondering whether it should stay as internet draft, get done, and then sent out to the IEEE. Right? Like that was one option we considered, right? So did we make a decision that we'll go for RFC first? Because the authors were concerned about the the transfer, right? So that's why we talked about this. Like, okay, what happens?
But I believe we resolved the issues associated with the transfer, and so we were going to publish this as an RFC. The 1588 working group does not plan to publish a Yang model for V2.
Okay.
For the next version,
okay,
I don't think it's called V3.
Okay, so the transfer. So as I said before, the transfer in our direction is not the issue as long as the authors consent, right? Like,
right.
So, like we do provide like right to do derivative works of our stuff.
Yes.
Right. So that shouldn't be a problem. Okay. So as
Right.
long as it's like a conscious decision, I'm okay.
Right. Yes,
Okay.
it is. That we had quite a bit of discussion about it, and the intention is to publish this version,
Right.
publish the version for V2. The question is what would happen for the next. And I, to be honest, I think what's going to end up happening is the next version of the 1588 specification will include a generic data model itself.
Sounds
Yeah.
good. So I don't mind you staggering the last calls, and I don't mind waiting for this. Like whenever you see this banded in the group to do it.
Okay.
And if this is the last item, like I think like there's a couple of things, administrative things that we need to do. Like that's the combining the working group charters. So I want to remind you like to think about it at some time.
Right.
And
So
so I can think of a good working group name. Time.
So so we've had several. Let me just ask we've had several conversations about why do we have two working groups, because they consistently meet together, and they're both related to time, and to some extent we kind of hated to lose the heritage of the NTP one, but we thought perhaps combining the two and having a new working group called Time, where all of the time issues in the IETF would go, and that would include NTP, PTP, timestamp formats, stuff like that. I've been threatening this for a while, and I just haven't actually proceeded with writing a new charter. But
Okay. So so the other related issue was the mailing list stuff. So if this is gonna happen, like I'm not gonna push on the NTP mailing list more, and then we can just like postpone this until we have like a new charter and let's just do a new list and be done with it, right?
okay,
Otherwise, like let's try to get that started. Like, so I'm not gonna push you to like move the list over, but at least I can get the stuff started. Like, so if you send me like small description of an IETF list, I'll get that created and waiting, right? Like for the stuff to move over. So we
okay,
don't have to have the delay after we decide to move over.
okay,
Okay.
that would be fine.
Cool.
The one thing is, because we will finish quite early today, if there's a couple people that want to stick around and help draft a charter, that would be really fabulous.
I did ask Brian Heberman to help, and he was willing, like at some point, right? Like, so maybe whoever helps now is good, but also drag him in because like.
Oh yeah,
he-
Brian is on speed dial to solve my NTP problems.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Um,
So Daniel is gonna help.
I will note that if we go through with this, then there will now be IETF working groups named Time and Dime, and I'm not sure that that all languages are able to distinguish those phonemes.
Yakov is having Mac problems. Says in ACE, we have to deal with coarse grain time synchronization. The currently envisioned solution does not fit in NTP or TikTok, but could be in a combined time working group.
Okay, thank you, Yakov.
You're missing the obvious opportunity to call it TARDIS.
TARDIS.
Just to answer Daniel, I think time might be going away soon. So just to, as a data point.
Yeah, Yakov, you're responsible for the name TikTok, so I'm not sure I'm going to let you name any more working groups. All right. Oh, that was Stuart. It's a real shame you can't get in the queue, Yakov. All right. So, are there any other questions for today's? Oh, wait. Somebody else wanted the mic.
Tal Mizrahi Marvel, it's just an administrative comment. I think it would really be helpful if every draft that is discussed, even if it's a very short update on the status, if we had at least one slide for each draft, that would be great.
Would be okay. Oh yeah, I'm sorry, you're done.
Thank you.
I wasn't. God, that he's standing there. All right. So one slide for each draft going forward. At the end of the last interim, I sent out sort of a summary of high-level summary of the actions. It wasn't really a set of minutes. I think I'm going to do that again today, even though we didn't actually quite meet all the things we said we were going to do out of the interim. At least it was helpful to go through each of the drafts that was discussed and summarize what the results and next steps were. So we can look for that going forward. The other question for you, Suresh, is for combining the working group with all of these existing drafts. I don't want to rename everything. I don't have to do that? Okay. That would be great. Okay. All right. With that, you all have an hour and a half extra in your day. Thank you very much. Huh? Oh, wait. Wait. Just 1 second. Somebody's getting in the queue. Okay.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Renzo Navas from Telecom Bretagne. Yes, in ACE working group, we will be dealing with the problem of time synchronization, and we have to come up with a solution lightweight. And actually, it's not. We don't need a precision time. We only need a rough time with a with a server. So if I don't know, currently it doesn't fit on this, neither on TikTok working group or NTP. But in the future, if you have a more general working group for time-related issues, I think we can make use of your expertise.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I know that a year or two ago, I had a conversation with Hannes about the time work in the ACE working group.
Yeah, we will need time synchronization, but a very simple protocol, and maybe we will use CBOR and all stuff we use on Internet of Things. So currently, it's not. It will be a new solution we will need.
Okay, thank you very much.
you.
Okay, last call for any last comments. No, I thought. Not during the meeting. Oh, you want to talk? No, afterwards. That's what I thought. Okay. All right. With that, everyone's excused. Goodbye. Thank you very much. Oh, unless you want to help with the charter, that would be great. The ITF community gets way too much enjoyment out of these actions. Ton. Okay. Okay. No, it completely. Yeah. So, but I do want to do it.
Very good. And we were not acknowledged in the draft, so they were really angry. And yeah, and they're like, no, the other issue there is that we did not acknowledge Sharon and Miroslav. Yeah, so
They can't tell us who not.
yeah, I'm sorry.